Hi everybody, it's Shuba. Welcome back to my channel. I have a few books that I wanted to talk to you about. 7 to be specific, because I read 7 books in May and I had a great reading month overall. I think there was one book that didn't really fit my wants and my needs when I go through a reading experience. For the majority of it, I really enjoyed all of the books that I read, and I want to talk to you about those books. So in the month of May, I read 3 romances, 2 sci-fi, and 2 fantasy, so that is 7 books total. And overall, I had a really good time reading all of them. For the month of May, my goal was to just kind of keep going in the series that I was reading and involved with, and then reading whatever I wanted to read for the month of May. So it was a lot of just mood reading, and I had a really good time overall. Now, let's talk about the books that I read. Like in the previous videos, I'm going to go from most liked to least liked. Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey is one of the most recent books that I just finished. This is a 9-book space opera series that I never thought I would really read, but I am loving it so much. This first book is actually a reread for me. I read this first book I think a year or so ago, and I'm picking up this series back up because there's so much that I missed, and I finally own all 9 books, so I figured that why not start over just so I can get a fresh start, get more perspective, and read about pieces that I might have missed. So that is why I picked this up. I love this story so much. You will not be able to put Leviathan Wakes down. It is very fast-paced. It is easy to read, especially for a science fiction story. I feel like the authors do a really good job of not dumbing down space, but making it in a way that anyone can really enjoy it, and that's what I really appreciate about a hefty book like this. This first book, specifically Leviathan Wakes, follows 2 sets of characters. We have dual POVs. We follow James Holden and his crew who are in space, and they end up essentially starting a war between Mars and Earth, and the Belt, technically. And then we have Miller, who is a cop who is trying to find this one missing girl. And this one girl ends up being intertwined with Holden and his crew. So it's just this like web of events that takes place, and then there's alien remnants that are being found, and shit goes wild in this story. There is a war that just starts to unravel and unfold, and it is so fast-paced and such a fun book. I really liked this story, and I'm very glad that I picked it up again and did a full reread of it, because I feel like it makes me appreciate the story even more. I don't normally reread stories unless I absolutely love them, but I think that it was very fitting for this story just because there's so much that goes on in terms of the plot that there's also a lot to miss. And I am very excited to pick up the next book, which is Caliban's War. Loved it. Highly recommend if you're wanting to just try a space opera or a science fiction series and you're afraid to read something, don't be with this one because it's really fun. You'll have a good time. Say You'll Be Mine by Naina Kumar. This is such a sweet story. I won't go too much into this because I do have a reading vlog where I talk about the romances that I read this month, but this is about our main character. Her name is Meghna. She is a theater instructor, professor, and she ends up getting involved with an arranged engagement of fake dating with our main male character. I forget his name. His name is Karthik. He's an engineer. They're quite opposite of each other, but they go through some events that just get them closer than ever, and it's just a fun love story. What I really enjoyed about this story in overall is that this is a fake dating or fake engagement trope, but I really love the relationship that our 2 main characters have as they go throughout the story, and by the end of it, I think that they grow in a lot of ways together but separately, and I really appreciated that. I think that Meghna is a character that you can really root for and enjoy, and then Karthik's character as well is so sweet. So the main characters are just 2 people that you can really appreciate in a love story. I really wish that I would have gotten Karthik's point of view. This is mostly just Meghna's point of view. Totally fine. loved it still, but I think it would have been a little bit more sweet if we got his perspective. Overall, really love this. I think it's very underrated. I don't see this book talked about a lot, and it should be talked about more because it is very, very sweet. Legendary by Stephanie Garber. This is the sequel to the Caraval trilogy. I really enjoyed the story, more so than the first book. The first book followed our two sisters, Scarlet and Tella, but it was mostly Scarlet's point of view, where she's trying to find her sister, Tella, in Caraval, and she goes through the games and the process. But this book is in Tella's point of view, and she is just such a fiery character. She's stubborn and fun and spunky, and she's not afraid of danger, I guess. I don't know how else to say it, but it was a really fun book, and I really enjoyed the plot point and where Tella is trying to go through the Caraval games again to get to something that I will not talk about. I don't want to spoil it since this is a second story, but I really enjoyed the story, and I thought the ending was a great cliffhanger. I love the romantic relationships that were built in this story, specifically Tella's, and it just was such a fun ride. What I really like about this series in general is that yes, it is a romantasy, but I also feel like I'm going on a quest with Tella, especially within Caraval, because there's different clues to solve the game of Caraval, and I feel like I have to turn my light bulb brain on just to go on this adventure with Tella. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I can't wait to pick up finale. I can't believe that it's going to be ending with this trilogy. I've heard that Once Upon a Broken Heart is just as good, so I will be reading that right after this, or finale, you know what I mean, yeah. Bloodmarked by Tracey Deonn. This is a sequel to the Legendborn trilogy. The third one hasn't come out yet. It comes out next year, but I loved the first one so much. Every aspect of the plot, the whole concept of Legendborn and the Knights of the Round Table and King Arthur storyline, I really liked the first one, and this one was just as fun. I will say that I liked the first one more than Bloodmarked. Still loved it a lot. I just think that the pacing of this one is a little bit slower. We do dive deeper into the world of Legendborn and what that really means, especially to Bree, as she starts honing in her skills and her abilities and her powers that she does have. No spoilers. I will not spoil anything for anybody, but I really did like that aspect of it. I thought it was a little bit slow, but you had to build up, so I do understand that. I really liked how Bree is slowly starting to just understand her roots and where she comes from a little bit more than the first book. I think that she finds her enemies, but she also gets closer to her friends that she didn't think she had in her corner, and that's all I'll say with that, and her love interests. Tracey Deonn did such a good job of turning this fantasy into a magical realism story, where she not only creates this fictional story, but she also implements a lot of important topics of conversation into what we're reading. There's a lot of talk on racism and sexism and oppression and just heavy things that we still deal with today, but in a humanized manner. I cannot wait for the third and final installment of this trilogy. I think it's going to be really fun. The cliffhanger at the end of this story was jaw-dropping. I had to double take and reread the last few pages because I was confused in the most emotional way. It was really, really good. I also want to mention that I buddy read this with Sully. We ended up buddy reading Legendborn together as well, including Deb, and I will link their YouTube channels down below because they're such fun gals. And Sully and I ended up reading Bloodmarked together, and we both really liked it as well. So we can't wait to buddy read the third and final book next year. Sugar Spice and Can't Play Nice by Annika Sharma. This is the fourth installment of the Chai Masala Club series. You don't necessarily need to read the first three before you do pick this one up. They do have some characters that pop up in this story, but I didn't feel like I couldn't understand what was going on, or I didn't feel lost. I still had a good time reading this story. It wasn't my favorite, but I liked it, and I'm glad I read it. I've had this book for such a long time. This is a story about our main female character. Her name is Pyle. She is a fashion designer, and she's getting ready to start her own line and company. Things are looking up for her. She is getting noticed with her design and line coming up and her fashion clothing line. And then we have our main male character. His name is Ian. He is from a very wealthy family. They own like a very big corporation, but he is the younger brother who is more creative, a little bit more chaotic, doesn't really know what he wants to do with his life. Pyle and Ian end up having a one-night stand, and they don't even know each other. They kind of both just swiped right and met up one night. A few days later, they both find out that they need to get arranged marriage together and get married to save their family's company. Yeah. So this is a forced marriage situation, and they both agree to do this because it benefits both of them in specific ways that you'll get into in this story. Pyle just has to deal with a lot of, do I take care of my legacy and save my family's future, or do I fend for myself and go along with my company and what I've been working so hard for? What I really like about this story is Pyle's character. I think that first of all, it's really cool that there is an Indian fashion designer that is talked about in a story like this. I feel like I've never read that kind of character before, and I really did like that a lot. But I like her because she stands up for herself and what she believes in, but she's also helping her family without sacrificing her job and what she wants to do with her life and her end goals. And I really appreciate that about a character, and I just like how Pyle is just so strong-willed, and she's trying to find balance between the best of both worlds. I think Ian is just a really good compliment to Pyle. They both really want different things in life. They are trying to do it in a way where they can help their families out, but also help each other out. There's something in it for him too. There is a third act breakup in here, which I was sad about because I like the characters, but it ended up being just fine because it is a happily ever after love story. I did like this. I think that if you just want something easy and fun to read, this is gonna be your pick. Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes is the Aardvark Book Club pick for the month of May that I had selected. This is a space horror story. I don't normally read space horrors other than the Expanse series. That's like the only space that I try to read or like reading. So I wanted to try something new and step outside of my current reading bubble, and that's why I picked this book up. I've heard that Dead Space, which is her debut novel, is fantastic for a horror story, and I'm wanting to pick that book up. This is a story about our main character. Her name is Ophelia. I always forget characters' names. Do you forget their names? I feel like I'm always like, who's who and who's what, especially with romance novels. Like, I had to double check with all those AAPI books that I was reading by South Asian authors. Anyway, Ophelia is a psychologist, and she ends up going on this mission with this crew to a abandoned space station, and there are some weird things that start happening, like psychological stuff. People start to go missing, and then at one point, I'm trying to figure out the syndrome. There's a syndrome called Eckhart-Reiser syndrome where basically people start going crazy and start killing themselves and other people. It gets weird, and all this is happening in a space station, ship. Same thing, no. I think that the concept was there. I believe I gave it a 3 out of 5, which is still a good book for me. It just wasn't my favorite. I was a little confused and bored by the middle of it. I really liked the start of the story and then the end of the story, but in the middle I was a little bored. I was like, okay, things need to start happening. I need to see something. I need to see the scariness of it to keep going. And I did finish it and ended up being okay. The reason why I didn't like this story as much is because I think that S.A. Barnes tried to make it more character driven than it needed to be, and then add a little bit of romance into a horror story, and I thought that was just weird and unnecessary. Ophelia starts to have these feelings towards one of the characters on the space station, and it just felt off to me, like not needed. You could have just done with that and saved some pages or added some other context to the situation at hand. The characters were all interesting. They all come from different backgrounds, which I really liked. I like that the characters are diverse in that sense, but overall it was good. If you've read S.A. Barnes before and you liked Dead Space, I would say pick this book up because you might like it. I feel like I'm doing a really bad job of recommending this story. It was good. It just wasn't great. But I still read it and I had an okay time. I had a good time. Okay, I'm just gonna stop there. My least favorite book for the month was The Emma Project by Sonali Dave. Now this is a retelling of Emma by Jane Austen, and I actually had higher expectations than I probably should have. I had never read any of Sonali Dave's books before, and I know this is a retelling. I've never read Emma before by Jane Austen, and I'm supposed to read it for the month of June for Rainy Days Book Club. But I just thought this was going to be a fun rom-com, and it fell very flat to me. Our main characters were just not my favorite at all. We follow the Rajay family, and this might be the reason why I didn't like it very much. This is the fourth book in the whole series of Jane Austen retellings by Sonali Dave. She has 3 others, and it all is centered around the Rajay family. And this book, I feel like you have to know about the Rajay family to enjoy the characters and the stories and know who they are. They say it's an interconnected standalone, and maybe they don't. Maybe I just thought it was. It was just not as fun for me as I thought it would. They brought in a lot of characters from that family, and I didn't know who was who or what was happening. It just wasn't a good time for me. I ended up doing what I do best when I'm not really interested in a story. I ended up audiobooking all of it. I'll leave my full thoughts in the video that I had filmed reading AAPI books for 24 hours. I just know that this wasn't my favorite, and that's okay. Well, friends, those are all of the books that I read in the month of May. What did you read in the month of May? And let me know down in the comments below what your favorite book was that you read, or what your least favorite book was, and let me know why. And if you read any of the books that I read this month, please let me know down below because I'd love to talk about it. Until next time, I will see you in another video. Bye.